Welcome to Will It Build, the series where I take your builds from my YouTube comments and Discord server and put them to the test to see if they are the real deal. If it's solid, then I'll gift you 1,000 silver, and if it's really something special, you'll be featured in a dedicated build video for your submitted build. So comment yours below so we can answer the question, will it build? Will it build? Episode 6! Okay, what do we have today? Frostburn Control Mage Stasis Perfected. Might be one of the coolest names that we've had for a Will It Build video so far. My version of the Osmiomancy Cold Snap build, iterated and perfected over years. I like that. Looks like they are recommending Glacial Harvest and Ice Flare Bolts. So no Stasis turrets. My heart just got torn out a little bit. But they sold me on the pitch. They said they've been iterating and perfecting it for years. They must know something I don't. We're gonna stay open-minded, give it a chance. And before we do hop in, I wanna note the last line that they typed down here, I hope you give it a whirl. This build carried me through everything, including every two-man Grandmaster, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion. Doing every single Grandmaster on two-man and attributing it to this build, that's pretty impressive. So I think it's only fitting that we ourselves test this build out in a Grandmaster Nightfall and see how it performs. And I really love this line here. You are not reliant on kills, orbs, or specific weapon perks. My favorite builds are always the ones that can always perform really well without having any setup criteria. You know, there's plenty of builds out there that are exceptionally good. However, they require kills, they require you to get orbs, they require you to get armor charge, something like that. I love builds that you just walk in, you spawn in an activity, and there's no setup. You just walk in and boom, you're good to go. You have the full capabilities of the build unlocked from the get-go. I love that. I'm excited to see how it goes. So I'd imagine the main thing here is going to be Osmiomancy Gloves, where your Cold Snap grenades have an additional charge, so you get 2 Cold Snaps, and recharge quicker on direct impact. And I've used Osmiomancies in the past, and I know that I believe, based on the tier of the enemy, if you throw a Cold Snap, depending on the tier, it'll instantly refund a certain percentage of your grenade energy, specifically where champions will refund 50% per hit. And so you can get up to 3 procs of that energy refund per Cold Snap because they'll run around and trace and track 3 different enemies. But you can actually get a 4th if you throw the grenade directly at an enemy and get a direct impact before it actually falls to the ground and starts tracking and freezing them, which is another thing that they mentioned. Good thing to keep in mind. And then in terms of our other stuff, Glacial Harvest, freezing targets creates stasis shards around the frozen targets. Higher tier combatants create more shards, which is going to be good for scavenging to get additional melee energy. Totally down for that. Then we have Ice Flare Bolts, where shattering a frozen target spawns seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. So I think the idea of this is going to be to throw Cold Snap grenades, freeze stuff, shoot the frozen enemies, and then when you shoot them and they break out of freeze from the shatter, all of the Ice Flare Bolts are going to run around and track to other enemies. In terms of our fragments, nearby stasis shards track to your position. Makes perfect sense to me because we're using Glacial Harvest, of course. We've got Refraction, so that defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy. We've got Rending, so that primary ammo weapons to increase damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets, which obviously are freezing everything. Then we got Fissures, so that the size of the burst and damage of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target is increased. So, looks all good to me. Let's hop into the Grandmaster Nightfall, arguably one of the most difficult activities in the entire game, aside from a day 1 raid. And let's see how it builds. So, just to jog my memory, right out the gate, we have some Thrall spawning here. If we throw a Cold Snap grenade, it looks like freezing them gives, I think it was 12.5% of a grenade refund. And boom, looking right there, the Ice Flare Bolts, whenever we break a frozen enemy, that Ice Flare Bolts tracks to a new enemy. Although, unfortunately, it seems like the Ice Flare Bolt Seekers do not refund grenade energy through the Osmiomancy Gloves, so that is going to be another important thing to keep in mind. I'm also curious about one thing real quick. I'm wondering if my teammates can proc Ice Flare Bolts on the enemy targets that I freeze. So I'm going to run up here and I'm going to freeze something, and then I'm going to let one of my teammates shoot it and break it out and see if the Ice Flare Bolt still happens. Throw another one down. So if my teammate shoots that enemy, it looks like it does not. So I believe I have to be the one to shoot the enemy for Ice Flare Bolts to proc. And then I got to be sure too to try and direct impact enemies with the Cold Snap, because like I said, that will give me 3 instances of hits for grenade refund as opposed to just 3.
What?
Did I say 3 instead of 3? Just in case. I have to make sure to direct hit enemies, or at least try to direct hit enemies with my cold snaps so that I get 4 instances of the Osmiomancy hit refund as opposed to 3. You know, this build doesn't feel like explosive or flashy or anything like that, but it definitely feels like it's got a lot of control going on, which is what is promised. And I can totally see how that resulted in them being able to practically two-man any GM. I was very skeptical when Stasis turrets were not one of the selections, but I'm liking it a lot right now. I want to test that theory from earlier where, remember, I said I believe on champions and boss enemies, if you hit an enemy directly with a cold snap, it'll give you the refund for the hit itself, and then it'll fall on the ground and the Seeker will hit the enemy. It'll give you 2 instances of 50% refund. And so now I'm pretty sure if I direct impact this Barrier Knight with my cold snap grenade, I'll get it back in full. Yep. Refunded it 100%. Because I get 50% from the actual grenade projectile hitting the Knight, plus another 50% from when the little Seeker goes and hits him. That time I missed him directly, but... There we go. Okay, I want to start getting some cold snaps off and start picking away at these weaker enemies. Which my Ice Flare Bolt should do a ton of work here when I shatter these guys. I think this can be really nice for boss tier enemies too. Because even though boss tier enemies don't actually get frozen, if you go ahead and hit them direct impact with a cold snap, it will still deal shatter damage, even though it won't actually freeze them. Which I think can be pretty useful. Especially considering you get the entire grenade back. Alright, let's drop that so we proc Bomber to get a little chunk of grenade energy back. I think I'm not using my Rift enough as well. I think this is a build that takes a bit of time and practice to get used to. I feel like I just don't have my head wrapped around it quite yet, and it's causing some complications. The number one thing that I've kind of noticed with this build is to emphasize, don't spam your abilities. I think how this build's intention is to control the battlefield, you yourself must also be very controlled in how you use it. And I'm gonna try to do everything I can to drop some grenades. Because the idea is if I hit one target with a grenade and I freeze him and then I kill him, then Ice Flare Bolt should be able to continuously carry on that Ice Seeker. And I'm wondering if, and I could just be remembering this incorrectly, but I feel like Ice Flare Bolts is allowed to be procced by other teammates if they are also on Stasis. So I think the reason it wasn't working for my teammates proccing it here is because one of them is on Void and the other's on Solar. Deal with this fella. And he's dead. Okay, I'm starting to get a feel for this. It definitely takes some time to get used to and understanding the rotations and the cadence of using your abilities. But once you have it down, it's pretty solid. I like it. It's definitely got that theme of control. It executes on it very well. Ooh, and I can freeze the Barrier Knight too to stop him from putting up his barrier shield. That's kind of nice. I like that a lot. Alright, let's try and hold down the fort right here with Ice Flare and my cold snaps. Yeah, I'm getting a ton of cold snaps back consistently. So I feel like I can just permanently control these enemies and make it so that they don't even get to take a step forward. Beautiful. Doing the little secret jumping spot. I don't know how many people know about this, but subscribe if you didn't know about it. Okay, let's try and get some stasis grenades up there. And then hit this for Bomber, which gives us a grenade back. And then if we direct hit that grenade, which we did, and then the Seeker freezes him, we get the whole thing back. And then we can do it all again, except we didn't get the direct hit because we're bad at the game. But I hit a bunch of orange bar thralls, so basically got the whole thing back anyway. I want to drag the boss into the cheese spot and just throw cold snap grenades at him and see how the shatter damage is. I've never just tested shatter damage alone, and I'm curious to see whether or not it's good. Okay, I think that's not horrible. Oh, Teammate just got absolutely obliterated. Because I'm thinking if I continuously shoot at him, I think the trick is just mix cold snaps into your shots. Just like this. So cold snap, shot, then we'll hit another cold snap, shot. Although the problem there is that, are my ice flare bolts re-freezing him? Because I can't tell if they are or not. Doesn't seem like they are. Yeah, I don't think so. The damage isn't bad. Alright, how does the damage look if my teammates are doing damage along with me? Because in this circumstance, it doesn't really matter if the ice flare bolts are proccing, because they're not re-hitting the boss anyway. And then the second I break him out of freeze, that's when I can throw the next grenade. So I can be throwing the grenades much more frequently. Okay, actually, I'll hunker down with the rift. I'm going to clear my backside real quick first, using my cold snaps and my ice flare bolts, which is really easy because, as you literally just saw, the ice bolts just like ran around and tracked everyone. And I'd imagine I can do the same thing here. And then maybe hit him so we get a little stasis freeze on him. Get the rift down. I'm just going to try and hold this position. That is my one goal. Hold this position. Don't let anyone get past me. And I should be able to do that by just kind of chucking a bunch of cold snap grenades out. Hitting him with a little ice stick of destiny. Hit him with another cold snap. Which didn't end up tracking him, but it's fine because he was finishable. And worst case scenario, I have my conditional finality. And then I think I'll get a finisher on this guy. And then throw an ice flare at this guy. Ice flare, cold snap. And I can't really dunk that, so I'm going to drop this ball right here so my invis hunter can go ahead and take care of that. And I'm just going to keep throwing a bunch of freezy stuff. Just going to keep freezing everything. My job, his job is to do the objective, my job is to control the battlefield. Let's get some conditional finality on him. Conditional finality's damage is pretty nice. And then I'm going to shoot some rockets right next to him. I don't want to shoot him right on top of his head because I think I'm a little too close. I think I'll take some splash damage. Yeah, just keep on with this. Maybe hop down. Freeze him up. And he's dead. Cool. Grandmaster Nightfall? Check. So, will it build? Absolutely yes. However, the one thing I do want to mention that I think is important to keep in mind is this build is definitely one that's a little more complicated and will take a little bit more practice on the user's end to reach the full skill ceiling of it. The individual that submitted it said that it took them a couple of years practicing and perfecting with it. I don't think it'll take people a couple of years to just understand how it works and to get good at it, but definitely a couple play sessions to master it the way that the build submitter probably envisioned it. Nonetheless, still definitely builds, has a ton of potential, has a high skill ceiling, and can definitely do a lot. Definitely delivers on the power fantasy that was promised. It's that control freeze, control frost mage kind of thing going. It's almost feels like you're playing an MMO in that sense. Definitely wins 1,000 silver. Make sure to submit your build in the Discord server linked in the description or down in the comments down below if you want your build reviewed in the next video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this one. Thanks so much for watching. As always, have a great day.